So the TK interface widgets are plentiful. I'm going to give you what are called the basic widgets, or referred to as the basics. There are many, many more that I won't cover today, but you can check them out on the documentation that's linked to from Canvas if you have any other needs, because there are tons. Okay, so the first widget that I want to talk about is a frame. Okay, you can see how it looks on these exact same frames shown on different platforms. What I've done here is I have given you a sample of some of the more common attributes that you can set for a frame. So you can say master equals window, or you can just say window. That's as long as it's the first attribute or the first parameter, you don't have to name it. The other ones you do have to name. So border width is 2, that's the thickness of the border. Relief, you can have solid or beveled, or there are a few different ones. If you don't provide this, the frame border will be invisible. So it will still group things inside it, but it won't be a visible frame, which sometimes is what you want. And then the width and height of the frame are the size of the frame in dimensions. So if I'm looking at this, let's throw that frame in there. And I can have these all on one line if I want, but for my brain, it's easier to lay them out this way. Make sure you put a comma at the end of each one so you separate them. Okay, so now if I run this after I've defined the frame, I want to show you that nothing will happen. The reason that nothing will happen is because I haven't told the frame to appear yet. And so if I want the frame to appear, I have to invoke a method called pack. Pack is a common to all widgets, and that is how you control when and where they appear in the window. Now I can just do this, tack that method onto the end of it, or I can call it frame.pack like that. Okay? And now that frame will appear in the window. I can also do things like set the background color, and you can look up all of the different named colors that are recognized by TK. Of course, I can also do the hexadecimal colors, which I think we've covered in the past. So you can do either one. And okay, so I can make the frame white. I want to take a second though and talk about the pack method, because the pack method is probably the easiest and most broadly used way of putting controls on the screen. It's not precise, but it's flexible. And that's a good thing because it allows your window to function better on multiple different types of devices. So the way pack works by default is that it uses sort of an upside down gravity. So every time I pack something, it's going to fall upwards toward the top and middle of the screen. So if I put a button under here next, it's going to pack to there. If I put another widget below that, it's going to pack to there. It's just going to keep stacking up as if they're falling from the bottom of the screen to the top. And that's how pack works by default. If I don't want it to work that way, let's say I want them to fall to the left-hand side of the screen. I can give pack a parameter of side equals left, and then I shifted gravity. So the next object will now come in and be lined up against that side of it. So usually what I do when I'm laying out a window in TK is I will figure out how I want the screen to be broken down into pieces, like into big pieces, and I'll do frames. Maybe I'll do 2 side-by-side frames. Maybe I'll do a top frame and a bottom frame. I just want to think about it in advance. Like, how do I want the screen to look? Maybe I'll even sketch it out to start with. But it takes side, bottom. If you want it to be, if you want regular gravity, and a lot of times pack is just left alone like that. So that is the frame widget and a little bit about packing things. The next widget that I want to cover is called a label. A label is a visible section of the screen that can be seen but not interacted with. So it's anytime you put text on a screen, maybe if you have like an entry field where somebody's supposed to type their name, you would have a label that says name next to it. So that's what it's commonly used for. As you can see here, labels can be formatted, can use different types of text, different colors of text, and even images in them. So if you want to display an image on your window, let's say you were making an Instagram filter like program, you might use a label to display the image. Okay, and so a label now you'll see here that I've set the master as the frame, so my label is going to show up inside the frame. And I think I'm going to set the background label, the background color to white, or no, I'm going to set it to black. And the foreground color to white. And then we're going to just pack it using that method. Okay, well, here's something interesting. Where did my frame go? It's still there, but by default, the frame will shrink to the size of the contents of the frame. I don't like that. That annoys me. So there is a method here called pack propagate. And if you put 0, it tells it don't do that. So now, when I run that, there's my frame as I intended it to be. Because when you use pack, what it's always trying to do is be space efficient. So it's like, why do you need this big frame if you're not going to fill it up with stuff? So it'll shrink it down to just the size of the label unless I tell it otherwise. That's what pack propagate does. I'm turning off the pack propagate property. So as long as you include that, I like to include it right next to pack so I know what I'm doing. But there I have a label. And again, I can, inside that pack, change gravity. Now notice, I've got 2 different gravitational pulls going on here. The main window has, I'm packing I'm packing this frame with the default gravitational pull, which is crowd to the top, and then I've told this label to pack to the left. So you can create some pretty intricate layouts if you think through all of the different possibilities and you start playing around with them. But each thing can be packed with its own sort of gravity. So that is the label. And labels are very flexible. The thing you cannot do is type in them. So you can't use them to gather information from the user. They're display only.